doing their thing in our community. Tonight is no different than any other night on the Ridin Durty show. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get really, really close to your computer, your radio device, your mobile phone, however you're choosing to listen to the Ridin Durty show. Get really, really close and glue your ears to the speaker as we welcome attorney Michael Howard Wolf to the show. Ow! I had to do that. What's up, Mike?
Hey, what's going on up in Atlanta?
Man, I'm just living, maintaining. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I spent a couple weeks in your beautiful city over the summer. Had a good time.
All right, what brought you to Atlanta? Were you here on business or personal?
Well, a little bit of both. I was actually playing in the National Bridge Tournament at the Marriott Marquis.
Oh, so you are an accredited bridge player?
Yes, sir.
That is what's up. So that's what an esteemed lawyer like yourself do in your spare time? You play bridge?
Well, I could say in my spare time I practice law. Yes, you're right. You are correct.
All right, so let's start from the nitty-gritty. Let's start from the begin, and let's walk these people on the walk of Mr. Michael Howard Wolf. First, let's let them know where you're from and what initially piqued your interest into getting in the law field.
Well, I'm actually was born in the Midwest in Milwaukee, but I grew up here in South Florida, presently living in Fort Lauderdale. And law for me was always a possibility, and my mother saw to it that it was made reality. So I had good parents and good guidance, and they thought I had a big mouth and a great personality, and therefore I obviously would make a good lawyer.
All right, so if it wasn't for your mother, what professional field do you think you would win in?
I don't know. I had a guidance counselor in junior high school who told me I'd probably be a garbage collector.
Whoa.
But my mother wasn't having any of that, so I always say that might have been what I wound up doing. I mean, listen, when I was a kid, to be perfectly honest with you, since I was born in Milwaukee, I'm a big Braves fan and maintained my interest in the Braves even after they moved to Atlanta. And I always wanted to be the catcher for the Braves. That's what I was going to be when I was a kid.
All right. Did you play any baseball throughout school?
Throughout elementary school. I wasn't exactly the fastest, the most nimble. I was a pretty good softball player, but I was never going to be a major league baseball player. So that's what happens when you can't compete in athletics. Then you have to do more brainy stuff like practicing law.
Right. So your mother was the push. She pushed you towards it. When did you realize, like, you know what, mom is right, and practicing law is something I'm pretty good at, and I definitely want to do for the rest of my life?
I would say I thought she was right when I collected my very first fee as a lawyer.
And you were like, whoa.
I said, this might be a pretty good profession, could be lucrative.
So do you remember your very first case? And if you're allowed to talk about it, what was that first case?
Well, my very first case was when I got out of law school. I went to work for a lawyer in a little suburb of Miami called Hialeah. And the very first case that he sent me on was an uncontested divorce hearing. And when I came back to the office, he asked me, how did it go? And I said, I lost. He says, you lost an uncontested divorce case? I said, well, I'm a young lawyer, and I guess my client didn't answer the questions correctly or something like that, so I have to go back. I mean, the judge said I could come back when I figure out what I'm doing. So my boss at the time, he wasn't real impressed with his first year lawyer losing his first case, which was an uncontested divorce.
Man, what did that do for your self-esteem? Because I would have been like, hold on, what?
Well, in the law practice, one learns to not take things personally, because if you take things personally, you're going to be too emotional and too stressful. A good lawyer maintains some detached objectivity, because that's typically what best serves the clients. Now, a lot of times the clients want the lawyer to be bombastic and kind of over the top and kind of crush the opposition and what have you. But that's not reality. I mean, you see that on TV, but in the real practice of law, that's not reality. That detached objectivity is what allows one like me, who's been practicing law for more than 40 years, to actually have made it this far without melting down.
Okay. All right. Now, some of your main practices are you do business law, criminal defense, gaming law, civil litigation, personal injury, immigration law, and divorce law. Out of all those practices, do you favor one over the other?
Well, I like my gaming practice, to be perfectly honest with you. There's only probably 2 lawyers here in the state of Florida that really have a little niche specialty in gaming. And when I say gaming, I'm not necessarily talking about the casinos. I'm not necessarily talking about the pari-mutuels, horse racing, dog racing, high life, things like that. My clients in the gaming area are what we would call gray area gaming here in this. That's what we would call it here in the state of Florida. And I think you have the same or similar issues in Georgia, because I'm familiar with the Georgia Amusement Machine Association. I've read their manual and what have you. But I think most all states in the country have issues with private people that are trying to set up gambling, strip mall type of casinos where they think they can take advantage of some of the loopholes in the law of that particular state and be able to operate, in that fashion. So here in Florida, we have several loopholes in our gaming statute. And there's no shortage of imaginative businessmen. Let's just put it that way. And so they come up with these ideas. And since I probably have more experience in this field than any lawyer in the state, and I've handled hundreds of cases from Pensacola to Key West. I have my finger on the pulse of the industry. I've had the lobby up in Tallahassee with the legislature. It's a field that I'm passionate about. And my clients know that I'm passionate about it, and they know that I know what I'm doing with it. And, a lawyer's like anybody else. We like praise. We like to be told how great we are and how knowledgeable we are and what have you. And that just happens to be an area of practice where all of my clients in that area are like that towards me. So that's why I like it. Now, on the other hand, at the other end of the spectrum, we can talk about divorce cases, which I kind of made a deal with myself a couple of years ago where I said, I'm never going to take another divorce case. But never's a long time, and I didn't really adhere to that. And I've taken a few divorce cases to my regret. But I used to do a lot of that in my younger days. But divorce law is my least favorite, reason being that it's not always lawyering. You're doing a lot of psychiatry. You're doing a lot of babysitting. You're dealing with a lot of dirty laundry, if you know what I mean. You're dealing with two people that are totally stressed out and at odds with each other. And it's just not a pleasure for me. It's just not a pleasurable experience to be involved in those kinds of highly, litigious and highly emotional cases.
And that was going to be my question. Why do you dislike divorce? But I can imagine, like when you were in doing divorce cases, like how many late night calls you get, or how often do you find yourself not being the lawyer but more of a counselor?
Well, I'm one of those lawyers that makes myself available to my clients 24/7. So I sleep with my cell phone next to my pillow, and it rings with regularity. I have to say, just because my clients know that I'm available. One thing that people love about their lawyer is that their lawyer cares about them, takes care of them, is attendant to their emotional needs and what have you. And so I've been doing it long enough where I don't mind doing that. It gets when it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and they just want to call you and give you their diary of the day fighting with their soon-to-be ex-wife. That gets a little bit old sometimes, but I don't mind doing it to a certain extent. Of course, the clients don't like it when they get the bill at the end of the month, because they don't realize how much of my time that they're taking. And when their whole bill is hours and hours and hours of phone calls and meetings and text messages, they don't like that. So it's kind of a fine line. I can keep them on the phone for hours, but when they start getting the bills, the phone calls tend to start to be minimal.
Now, do a lot of people think the phone calls are free?
A lot of my clients think everything I do is free. Right? But I have to, I kind of have to set them straight, after a while.
All right, now, have you ever had a client that you said, I don't care what walk of life or situation you're in, I will never, ever represent you again?
Yes. to put it bluntly, clients, look, clients, like any other business, your customers, your clients, for somebody like you, your radio advertisers and things like that, they all have their own ideas. The clients that like to tell me how to do my job are not my favorite clients. The clients, that want to argue with everything that you do are not my favorite clients. The clients that want to do all of that and then not pay you are also not my favorite clients. So, yes, I've had many people that were my clients, some for many, many years, that, after a while, it just isn't going to work anymore. I don't need the hassle. I don't need the intrusion into my professional life that they represent. And yes, I think probably every lawyer on the planet, has certain people that they would refuse to represent in the future. Clients that don't tell the truth. Clients that try to hide things and what have you. So, I've had people ask me, if Donald Trump called me to represent him, would I represent him? And, he would be the kind of guy that I wouldn't, because he doesn't tell the truth.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. How important to you as an attorney to know 100% that you're representing a client who's telling the truth?
Well, I always impress upon my clients that their lawyer is their best friend in the matter that they're seeking your counsel on. And because your lawyer is their best friend, and because everything that a client tells his lawyer is confidential, there's no reason to obfuscate or bend the truth, or, leave certain material facts out of the story that they're going to tell me. And I try to nip that right in the bud right away. And I tell them, listen, if I don't know the truth about every single thing, when we get into court, for sure, something's going to come out that you didn't tell me, or you told me the opposite of what was the truth, and that's going to be the death knell of your case. So, you just have to understand right away. And if I find out that my client has lied to me or lied to the court, then that's going to cause me to withdraw from their representation.
You should charge them extra for lying. It should be extra fee for lying.
Well, that's a good idea. You want to be my collection enforcer? I have a position open for you.
Hey, I'm coming to Florida to get that job. I want to ask you, being that you're in Florida, I'm just going to ask you, just give us a little brief synopsis of the law. Tell me about the stand your ground law in Florida, because that tends to come up a lot, especially here in Atlanta. We hear about the stand your ground because of quite a few high profile cases. Tell me about the stand your ground law and what it actually means.
Well, the stand your ground law means that if you are in peril, if your safety is threatened, you can take actions that you deem necessary to protect yourself. That's the essence of all the stand your ground, types of statutes. In other words, we're allowed to defend ourselves to the extent necessary. The problem comes with what is the extent that's necessary, and that's where all the contentious cases come from. Is, for example, we had George, I can't think of his last name off the top of my head, but we had the guy that used the stand your ground law, where he shot the young black man who was, walking down the street with candy in a bag and wearing a hoodie, and it became the whole case became about whether or not the use of deadly force was necessary under the circumstances that he was in, and he was able to get a not guilty verdict because I guess the facts showed that his use of force was reasonable under the circumstances. So it's the type of law that's always subject to certain interpretations by the court. You've got a jury deciding those issues, obviously, in criminal cases. But again, the essence of that stand your ground law is that we are allowed to defend ourselves when we feel our safety is threatened or we're in peril.
All right, now
Zimmerman. Yeah, there you go. George Zimmerman.
Yeah, George Zimmerman.
Yeah.
And the kid was Trayvon Martin.
Trayvon Martin, yes.
All right, now what's the difference between stand your ground and self-defense, or is there a difference?
Well, stand your ground goes a little further than self-defense, because think about the words that you're using. Defense, all right, is, using the most minimal force that you can use in order to defend yourself. The stand your ground law is not limited in that fashion, because it doesn't require you to take the most minimal action. It allows you to take what you consider to be reasonable action. Self-defense, though, is not going to be a good defense if you're using more force than what was necessary. So in other words, the standard is different. The standard is much tighter in a self-defense case than it would be in a stand-your-ground case. But in a lot of ways, they're similar as well. But that would be the technical difference between the two.
All right. before we go, because it's man, when you're talking, having a good talk, it goes by so fast, and I definitely appreciate you coming on the show.
Yes.
I've noticed that a lot of professionals, Dr. Miami, just a lot of people in the professional world has taken to social media. And I noticed that you as well has taken to Instagram. You give out tips of the day and things like that. What made you decide to utilize social media to help your practice?
Well, I was kind of living in the dark ages. I like to say that I was still using typewriters and carbon paper until I was introduced to the concept of social media marketing. And if I wanted to rebrand myself and my law practice and my law firm and what have you, it was taught to me that social media is the proper platform, not TV advertising, not billboard advertising, bus bench advertising, things that, that a lot of lawyers spend a lot of time and money on. But I learned very quickly from some people around me that are very good at it, just exactly what it could do. And when I learned that, it's really been amazing that I've had so many people say to me, "Wow, I saw this on Facebook. I saw you on Instagram. I'm connecting with you on LinkedIn, and all that stuff." And I'm like, "Well, I don't even know half of it. I'm not real experienced with that stuff. I mean, I know how to sign into Facebook, but posting something on there would be something that I'm still in the learning stage of." So I can see, though, that it's a very powerful method of promoting a business, whether it be a profession like law or anything else. And I would say that, that's where the future is going to be. And the other mediums, TV, radio, and what have you, I think are really going to go to the back burner with that stuff.
Okay. And I might be wrong, and I think this is very necessary, whether it's on YouTube or social media or television. I've never noticed, how they have all the judge shows. Why is there such thing as a lawyer show that's like reality that follows a lawyer as they take the cases, like a Judge Judy or Judge Brown?
Not that I'm familiar with. I mean, I think the last lawyer show I watched was L.A. Law, about 25 years ago. But I don't know. There are none like that, and the judge shows are kind of laughable, because if you really went to a courtroom like some of those are, judges don't act like that in real life. I mean, most judges are fairly subdued, and they don't feel like they're acting when they're sitting on the bench. So people just get the very wrong impression of what a courtroom and a hearing and a trial are really like by just watching it on TV. But of course, a lot of my clients, think they have a great idea of what a lawyer does because of what they see on TV. So it's, you don't know what's involved by just watching something on TV. You just don't.
All right. You've put over 40 years in the game of practicing law. Mm-hmm. What has been the most rewarding thing for you, and what would be your words of advice to the people listening to the show?
Well, my first piece of advice would be, if you have an issue that involves any kind of legality, if you're thinking about entering into a contract, you're thinking about buying a house, you're thinking about even investing, you shouldn't be afraid to consult with a lawyer before you take any step like that. All right, it's so many of my clients sign first and ask me later, at which point it's too late, instead of the other way around. And so my advice to anybody would be, if you even have an inkling of a legal issue, it doesn't even have to be an issue. It can just be something that you want to do. You haven't done this before, and you need to get a little bit of counsel. I mean, so if you pay a small consultation fee to a lawyer, it can save you a lot of stress, aggravation, and money down the road. It's just a little bit of a preventive action, like a dentist would tell you, or like a doctor would tell you. Go for your checkups every 6 months. And it's no different, insofar as law is concerned. As far as my most rewarding experiences are getting cases resolved for people with a minimum of stress, a minimum of time, a minimum of expenditure, and being able to get them a good result through a resolution short of a ton of litigation, and then have the client be appreciative of that, I would say for me is the greatest reward, because I like my clients to be happy. However that may come about, I want my clients to be happy, satisfied, and not too stressed over what they've had to go through.
All right, that is really, really cool and dope. All right, Mr. Wolf, before you get out of here, let the people know, number one, how to get in touch with you if they're seeking your services. If they're in the Florida area, give them your address. Just let the people know how to contact you and further any legals.
Well, the number one thing that I would recommend is visit our website, michaelhowardwolflawfirm.com. I use my full name. mhwlawfirm.com is the web address. And you can see all of the services that we offer. We've got some videos posted there on areas of law that on YouTube, with regard to areas of law that are everyday things like speeding tickets and uncontested divorce cases and what have you. And that's really the best place to become familiar with the services that we offer. I'm down here in Fort Lauderdale, downtown Fort Lauderdale, and my address is on the website, and all my contact information and all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and what have you. Now that I've transitioned to that after being an old-time fuddy-duddy, I can talk a little bit more intelligently about that stuff. So I've come into the real world, and I'm not shy about getting the information out there.
All right. I definitely appreciate what you do, and I'm sure all the people who've used your services definitely appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show, and do me one big favor, and please continue putting up your tips and the things that you're doing on Instagram. I think that's really, really dope, and I think a lot of people can learn from it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Good talking to you. And I'm still hyped up by your introduction there. When your show gets going, I was up and dancing around.
I appreciate that. I have to get myself going. It gets me pumped. But my last thing, Mr. Wolf, has anyone ever told you the name Michael Howard Wolf sounds like a superhero or an alias for a superhero?
No. I like the idea, but no, nobody's ever mentioned that I was a superhero.
You sound like lawyer by day, wolfman by night.
Wolfman, there you go.
All right, Mr. Wolf, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show, and again, continued success, and have a wonderful night.
You do the same, and same to all your listeners.